It's KUZO here, back with another video. In this video today, we're going to be talking about the secret to getting better at drawing. As young aspiring artists, we're always trying to look for that one secret, that one thing that helps us get better at drawing the fastest way possible. And as we look around for that secret or that fastest way, you will hear a lot of the things such as hard work, just putting the work in, determination, all that sorts of stuff. And all those are very valid. I mean, anything that's worth having is typically hard earned. And of course, if you want to be good at something, you're going to have to do it a lot and you're going to have to work hard at it. So it's definitely not an easy task in any regard. So you should already expect this. And especially with the idea that 10,000 hours is the amount of hours roughly it takes to master something, or at least get to a very high level in that specific subject. And with all that being said, what exactly should we be doing during those times we're working really hard and putting in all that dedication in order to get really good? I've broken down the secret of drawing into two very important things that I believe is the bloodline and the foundation of the secret of drawing and how to get better at drawing very fast. Those two things are perspective and form. These two things are two of the most important of all of the fundamentals. The reason why these two things are the secret to drawing is because they are literally the foundation to everything that goes with the other fundamentals. It's what allows artists to even create the illusion of depth. It's what makes artists be able to even draw people, buildings, any of that stuff, create lighting even. And if you're one of those people like me who try to avoid perspective as long as possible, you might fall into the same trap I did. See, with perspective being the thing that actually allows us to create space on this 2D canvas, if you don't learn that, going to be some major holes in your basic understanding of how to create something that's supposed to be 3D. Now, like I said, I experienced this firsthand. I avoided doing perspective. In fact, I thought I knew enough perspective to get myself by, but turns out I really did not. I found myself stuck all the time, and without perspective being my strong foundation, I ended up drawing things wrong and learning how to draw them wrong all along. So what happened was I ended up learning these things incorrectly, and I had to go back and relearn them, which was a very strenuous process. So if you end up doing this stuff early on and practicing form and perspective, you're going to take massive leaps compared to what I had to go through. One of the reasons why perspective is so important is because you can end up taking anything that you don't understand, and if you understand perspective well and you've practiced shapes in perspective, this is a nice little foundation for you to be able to take things you don't understand and break them down into much simpler shapes and then draw those shapes in perspective, instead of taking a full body that you just don't understand yet and then trying to draw that in a perspective that you may not even understand. The great thing about perspective is it's all based on guidelines. You can sit there and draw squares for days that are completely accurate if you just do it slowly enough at first and try not to jump into it too fast, and just do these things over and over and over again very slowly. You'll end up being able to do them really fast, and then you become very familiar with these perspectives. Now, recently, in the past year and a half, I've had a lot of health problems, and it's taken me a little bit away from drawing, and I've gotten a little rusty, and I've come back and stuff, and I've been a little rusty, and I've been kind of frustrated when I was trying to get back to the level I was at. And there was one day that I was doing all these practices, right? And I was still frustrated because I felt like something wasn't latching on, something just wasn't clicking. And us being human and being weird, for some reason I realized I wasn't practicing any perspective. I hadn't done any. I've been drawing figures that weren't in any specific designated perspective. And you would think that would go well, and that's just enough practice, especially with the knowledge I already had with perspective, but turns out my brain started forgetting some of the fundamental rules of perspective and form. Lo and behold, I'm not such a big brain KUZO. In any case, I ended up going back and trying out some perspective, and then all of a sudden, within an hour, my mind started things started clicking again, because I started remembering things about certain rules that I had kind of disregarded, or even just for some reason my mind kind of put aside. It's such a strange thing, the mind is. Sometimes you have to remind yourself something of something you already are supposed to know and you thought you had already memorized. And this is one of the reasons why keeping yourself sharp by practicing things you even know all the time is very important. And just to make it clear, I'm not saying you're going to go in and draw perspective and within an hour you're going to be like, oh, but the thing is, once you start practicing perspective and you start moving on to other things, such as, like breaking down bodies to put them in perspective based on more simplified shapes, gonna be hard at first, but let me tell you, when things start clicking, things will go so much faster, because if you don't have a strong foundation of what actually creates what you're trying to draw, this illusion, things at some point will start crumbling down with your artwork, just as they did to me. Don't get me wrong, you can get to a certain point in art, and you can get to a pretty good point in art without understanding this stuff to a too high of a level, but there is going to be a wall that you hit. There's also the risk of you learning things incorrectly and then having to retrain your brain. On top of that, the benefits of learning this stuff really well and early is the fact that things fit in like a perfect puzzle. When you learn this foundation, things just start falling into place instead of being as frustrating, because guess what? You have the foundation to fall back onto. So when you're having a hard time, you go back and practice the fundamentals. That's the rule of thumb I've learned to live by, especially after this past week and a half that I've gotten back into just practicing perspective. Cannot express how true this is. Basically, for a little relation moment, think about those times when you've been having a really hard time and you just can't figure something out. For some reason, it just feels impossible. Well, now imagine you have this little friend that's called the actual rules that make this possible, and you rely on that to give you the answer. If you know perspective and shapes in perspective well enough, you will be able to find that answer much easier than without those, because if you don't have those fundamentals, you're basically going into the dark without any answers and just shooting into the dark hoping you'll hit a target. So perspective is our little buddy and best friend, and then we have form, which I like to combine with perspective, because I believe with perspective comes form. And I believe form is hard to imagine without perspective, because perspective creates space, correct? And without space, there is no form. Form is really what comes around to you being able to take perspective to the next level. It's pretty much understanding everything around that one object, exactly how it is built in that 3D space. Perspective is technically just the rule, and form is pretty much the product of that rule. Perspective is allowing you to create objects within that space that end up having 3D form. And this is where the reasoning why I believe form and perspective are the secret to drawing. It's because if you think about it, if you literally master perspective and form, just those two things, imagine how fast the other fundamentals will come. Because if you know how to create form, lighting would only take you a week, a month at most to learn, because if you mastered form, you would know how to bounce light off that form pretty well. And lighting typically goes with also value. So without lighting, there is technically no real value in there. Color theory is just a branch off of value, because value is what helps make form seem even more 3D. And color is really just what lays over value, and without actual value, colors don't really mean a whole lot, at least when it comes to three-dimensional space. Because then there's the whole subject of color theory, which goes into coloring, obviously. As you probably noticed by now, everything started from perspective, and then perspective is what allowed form to be a thing, and then form is what allowed value to become a thing, and then value is what allowed color to become a thing, which is what allowed color theory to become relevant. And obviously, at the end of the day, I would say fundamentals in general are really, really important, and just learn all of them. The starting point to it all with 3D art is perspective and form, because everything else fits on top of it like a puzzle. That's why it's the secret to drawing, and that's why they're the hardest out of all the fundamentals to learn and master. But yeah, in any case, some of you guys have probably been around on my channel for a while and heard me harp on this, and those of you who have actually followed the perspective way of life, let me know how much it's helped you. But yeah, in any case, if you guys want to support my artists, check me out on my Patreon. Link in the description. I do like tutorials and manga stuff on there and stuff like that, and anatomy sheets. But yeah, we have a lot of fun on there. But huge thanks to my Patreons, and a special thanks to my Chunin and Jonin tier Patreons. You guys are awesome. So if you guys like live stream art stuff and real-time stuff, definitely check out my second channel, KUZO, link in the description. But in any case, if you guys like this video, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you're new to this channel, like what you see, please subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notified when each video comes out. And like always, guys, hope you're having a great day, and see you guys in the next video.